everyone. Welcome to another Inner Life 101 video. First, I want to thank everyone for subscribing to the channel, and thank you to the new subscribers. And today, I just want to kind of tread lightly here because, as you see on the screen, we have Master Fundi Fe here. And I am basically piggybacking on one of um, her recent videos, and the one she was speaking of about time. And in that video, she said if she's wrong, then tell her. So basically, that's what I'm doing here. I'm not debunking her like I do Nature Boy, because I love Master Fundi Fe. I'm not going to um, step on her toes in any way, other than the fact that what she don't understand about the know thyself teaching, the quote know thyself teaching. So come with me and let's dab into that a little bit. um, like I say, I'm not trying to show that she's wrong or anything. I'm just, I just kind of, it's an interesting topic, and I really would like to talk about this here. uh, let's see what she's saying here.
Today's consideration will be time, because there's definitely one cliche that I am so tired of hearing, and it's such a cliche that even the people that say it know they lie. Grand rise, everyone. Time is an illusion. No, it's not. We live on planet Earth. We are made of biodegradable material.
Okay, so here we go. Let's get started. The the thing is that in the know thyself teaching, which is an ancient wisdom teaching, uh, a truth teaching, and basically it's a system for mental health. And in that system, we speak about time being an illusion. And we're not saying that time does not exist. We know that, of course, we have to get to the doctors on time, we have to get to class, we have to meet our aunts and uncles on time, we have all kinds of functions and duties that we have to perform um, on time, according to man's time, according to the sundial, as it started off to be. Um, but there is also a time, well, I'll say there's also a school of thought that teaches time does not exist. Because, first of all, man made up time. Man made time up. And that time that man made up and us following the clock all the time basically causes problems, cause havoc on human beings when they're rushing into that time, when they're following those time. Um, the problem with that time is that it causes the human the human mind to go venture into the past, and it causes it to venture into the future, and it causes, you know, it 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 causes a person to age. We're all going to age, don't get me wrong, but it causes people to age sooner. Then we start attaching words to time, such as, um, like, I'm getting old, those kind of things. So we put ourselves on the clock, the man-made clock, and then we start to see the effects of those um, thoughts. Okay, so that's the issue with time, and therefore there's a whole teaching from ancient times that try to take the psyche off time, off, to where you can live in the flow of things and not be saddled with a clock and a sense of time. When you do that, it causes you to be able to be free. Simple as that. It causes you to live free, to feel lighter, to feel, um, it doesn't impose itself on you because you're not following anything. It's just empty space, basically, in the place of time. So let's go on a little further and hear what else she had to say about this.
Time is not an illusion. Peace and blessings to the family.
And I'm sure that one of the places that she's getting this from is from Nature Boy, which is, you know, kind of gets on her nerves, of course. So let's go into this.
Peace and blessings. Peace, peace. With less interference. Time is not an illusion. Stop saying that. We live on planet Earth where there's carbon dating. Stop that. What time is, on the other hand, is a measurement.
And of course, I agree with her. I just told you I agree with her about time. But there's also another part of time. When we say that time is an illusion, we are talking about it on a spiritual level. So, well, of course, I mean, it makes sense that that's what we're talking about. So, I'm quite sure that she's not fully engulfed in the ancient wisdom teaching of what the conscious community call know thyself. So that's why she don't understand it. Even though she has stepped into it, she probably don't know it on certain levels, certain principles. She do seem to follow. So, but since she don't know the entire all the principles of the system, then she wouldn't know.
Because that, sir, is a lie. Time is very real. Time is so real that even God prescribes it. Time is so real that the trees themselves are marked by it. Time is an illusion. That's bullcrap. If time was an illusion, then your children would still be either in your grandmother or your mother or your mother's
Mm.
mother or your mother's mother's mother or, just in the proverbial soup. If time was an illusion, we got to stop doing this to ourselves. You're mind hacking yourself on what time is. That's why you don't know how to use it.
And you know, that is pretty much the purpose, is to time to mind hack yourself, because what you're working on in this teaching is your mind and your the illusions that are, how can I say, taught to us from uh, from the day we were born. So we were conditioned to believe in a number of things, and therefore we were uh, we were mind hacked when we came into this world. So in order to be free of that mind hack, you have to basically understand the mind hack and basically hack yourself and reprogram yourself. So this is why you hear so many people talking about time being an illusion.
But let's just put this fallacy up right quick. Because I know a lot of y'all don't read analog time anymore. Well, first let me ask of the 9 people in here, good morning. How y'all doing? Um, how many of y'all know the difference between digital time and analog time?
She's so silly. She'll wait.
Mm.
You see, the thing is that she's looking at it on the level of just, on the strictly on the physical level, on the the things that you can touch and see level. So, um, that's where the point is being missed. You can't look at this um, principle about time on a purely physical level.
Let me show you what analog time. This is analog time.
It's a beautiful clock. Yes, that's a beautiful clock. But however, when you step into this kind of uh, teaching, you learn to live without that clock, be it digital or analog. I remember when I first came into this teaching, I used to buy watches and everything. And now, for years, I haven't had a watch. I have watches, I own watches, but I never wear them. Um, and of course, you have the phones now have, clocks on them, but you still don't, I still don't relate to time um, as a physical thing anymore, because I'm just basically going with the flow. And that's the purpose of it. It gives you the freedom to go with the flow of life and let life kind of guide you through daily experiences. So, but you, which most people can't do that when you're attached to time. So it plays havoc on you. So anyway, let's go on.
Each increment of 12 is broken up into 5 other increments, is it not? Every one goes to 5. Is mathematics an illusion?
Now that's funny to me because, um, like I said, she is just thinking about the surface level of the human experience. Um, the principle that time is an illusion is based in the fact of, like I said, about thought. So what it is that when a person is thinking in the future or in the past, that is an illusion. Okay, that's the time that we're speaking of, the time of the past and the future. You see, humans tend to adapt the, and this is because of time, because of the measurement of time, they tend to adapt the pendulum mind. And the pendulum mind is, it swings to the future one moment, then it swings to the past the next moment, and then it sometimes it rests in the present, and then it goes back to the future and back to the past, and then stays in the past for a while, and then goes back into the future like that. So in the Know Thyself teaching, and I'm just using that for lack of better words, words that people would understand. Um, the purpose is to calm that thought process, to bring it to rest, so that a person will not experience the regret of the past or the fear of the future. Okay, so that is what's at stake here. This is what time does to human beings. So you would have to learn to be able to see that when your thoughts swing to the future, it's an illusion. What you're seeing and what you're experiencing at that time is an illusion. When it swings back to the past, it's an illusion, because what is happening then and what is in your mind is not actually happening at that time. So you're thinking about the future, fantasizing or whatever. It is not happening at this moment. Therefore, it is an illusion. Same thing with the past. You're regretting the past. You're in the, uh, remembering something that happened in the past, and it's causing you anxiety. It's causing you fear. So it is important that a person understands that it is not happening right now. It is an illusion. Okay? It is something, the important thing is right now. So if you can keep your mind out of the past and out of the future until it's absolutely positively necessary. And remember, I said positively necessary, not negatively necessary. So if it's something that gives you joy, or if it's something that causes you to, like, you have to remember something, excuse me, you have to remember something in order to protect yourself, or to protect others, or whatever the reason that you have to use your memory in order to continue life in a how can I say, I don't want to use the word happy, but in a joyful manner. I'll put it like that, in a joyful way. Then you will use your thoughts of your memory. And of course, memory is being used, to read books and that kind of things to retain that information that you might need. Um, the future, of course, is there to project into with your goals or different things like that, and plan your plans. Say you have a trip for, you want to go to um, California, so you decide you're going to, you have to book your flight and all of those things ahead of time. So that's the human part of things. That's the physical level of things, of time. And of course, we have to do that. That is important. So hopefully you understand what I'm saying now, that um, in this system for mental health, it is imperative that one practice not swinging the or I'll say one pay attention to and be watchful of the pendulum mind that goes into the past and into the future. Let's hear from uh, Fundi here. And see, knowing what Fundi does, I know that she would agree with that, because she, I'm sure she sees the human conditions of where the people that you work with are, where they're lingering in the past thoughts, or where they're, being, having anguish over future thoughts, future plans, or what's going to happen to them in the future, and that kind of thing. So I'm sure she would agree with this principle.
An element. Thank you. It is a concept. It is an element. Time is an element of this existence. Period. You will use it or you will lose it. Time does not stand still for nobody. This mathematics.
Okay, I don't want to, you know, hash over every point that she's making, because it is in a it's far away from what the principles of know thyself is. So remember, we're talking about two different things. We're not talking about getting somewhere, and like she mentioned earlier about wasting time. We're not talking about that kind of time. We're talking about strictly working with someone's mind, a conditioned mind, the condition of the man, of the human. This is what we're talking about when we speak about time as being an illusion.
You will use it or you will lose it. Time does not stand still for nobody. This mathematics is so precise. It is the love of God. Oh, Fee, come on. How are you equating time with the love of God? Time don't care if you worship it, watch it, or care about it. It will march on. God don't care if you worship it, care about it, see it. It don't care. God marches on.
And of course, that's true, on a physical level. Spiritually, you see, because the principles or the know thyself teaching is a spiritual practice. And what it basically does when you are working the principles and freeing yourself with the truth, you find your connection with God. So that's why the know thyself teaching is so attractive. And that's why there's basically a whole community here on YouTube uh, dedicated to it. The conscious community is basically dedicated to the know thyself teaching. And yes, like she said, you use it or you lose it. Well, the purpose of the know thyself teaching is to lose it. You do want to lose it because you're dealing with a system for mental health. So, um, and in that teaching, once you free your mind of the negativities of the past and the negativities of thinking into the future, then you find your connection with God. You find where you find your relationship with God. As simple as that.
But how did you come into existence? If not the breath. Now, listen to me for a second because I'm about to make this crazy parallel. How did you come into existence if God did not blow, listen to me, time into you? Fee, what do you mean? Oh, girl, you reaching. Oh, no, I'm not. Did we not begin our time with first breath?
And yes, of course, we began that time with first breath. But when we begin here on this earth, we were not thinking of the past. We were not thinking of the future. We were not, and when we did think of it, it was not in an ancient way. I mean, not ancient. I mean, you know, we didn't think of it in a state of anxiety. Okay, so that is what has happened with this time thing. As a child, we grow up as from a baby, you know, and then we start moving into where people are placing these markers on us so far as time, reminding us of time, teaching us how to read uh, digital and analog clocks. And and then we started learning from our parents and people around us how to basically remunerate these thoughts of uh, the past and of the future and all of those things. So a child is perfectly fine living in the present. So they don't have the issues of time. Of course, the body, the natural body, is experiencing time. But in the Know Thyself teaching, we are not talking about what the body is experiencing. We are because our mind is causing us, our bodies to deteriorate or whatever much faster because of time. But when you remove that, then those stressors, when you remove that in your thinking, then you start living longer. You live happier and freer. It's simple as that. So here we go. Back to Fundi. Like I say, this is not a beef. I don't have a beef with you, Fundi. I just want to, clear some things up when it comes down to this. So, and probably won't get any views on it, but that's okay, because we understand. At least, Fundi, you will see this, and because I'm going to shoot it straight to you so you understand it better. Um, Take you out of your little, um, how can I say, your um, anxiety over the fact that people keep saying it.
A lot of studying. I'm up more than people know that I am. Just trying to buy my time. Or should I say bide my time. Because it's all we got.
But Fundi, let me submit to you, as I explained earlier, it's not all we have. Um, One thing that I teach people when it comes down to time is about age. And most people say, oh, I don't feel this age. I don't feel like I'm this age. I feel younger than I am, than what I feel on the outside. I feel younger inside. And I tell people, and I ask people, I say, hey, when I hear people talk about, oh, I'm getting older, this and that, I ask them, I said, yeah, and you're how old? Okay, so now tell me how old do you feel inside? And they tell me, and then I let them know that that's the age that you truly are. You're not the age outside according to the clock and according to the calendar made by man. You have an inner calendar, an inner clock, and that inner clock is telling you that you're much younger than what they say you are on the outside. You see, people actually live out what you tell them. When you give them labels on things, then they start living according to those things. Um, so time is one of them. When you start going into this whole thing from their birth um, to their death, you push this time thing on them, then it wears them down. They feel older. They feel, um, like I say, much anxiety. They feel they have to rush. They have to get things done. They have to, get certain things done before the end of their days, the end of their life, as they put it. Um, and so we like to, or we have to bring people minds. Well, we have to basically put time in perspective for people, because when they're placed with the clock in front of them, they tend to get, you know, they wow out from time, from watching it for, all of their life, from day one. So, anyways, that's the basis of this teaching that we're talking about when we say uh, time is an illusion. And of course, I'm not trying to do the whole video here, just want to make those points. So, let me see, she had a few good more points that I wanted to touch on and just kind of piggyback on it. And I just want to kind of, it was a good topic. I like the fact that she took on this topic, and there's other things that she's have uh, taught about as well. But um, I think I'll take this time, since I kind of come off the nature boy a little bit, because they're not interesting for some reason. And then I have lots of things to do right now, so I haven't been able to keep up with what he's saying, but he's not really saying much. I thought about going through his videos that he put online and going against those things, but uh, I'm too busy really to play with it. But I would like to be able to, refute his teachings so far as the videos that he put on Carbonation TV, and then so that the his members could have, or the people that think about joining him would have a contrast, So, but it's probably too much. It's just too much for me anyway right now. But anyways, I enjoy this topic here with Fundi, so therefore, I hope she don't feel like I'm stepping on her toes or anything. But it's just the teaching. It's a part of my teaching, so therefore, I just want to expound on it. So let's see what else she has to say.
I am at Planet 13, which is the largest cannabis
And how dare people tell me that my time is an illusion, because you're telling me all I have is illusionary, and that's bull.
Well, when it comes down to your thoughts, as I said before, swinging back and forth, the pendulum mind, going back into the past and forward into the future, um, it is illusionary, because, like I say, your past is not happening right now. And like I say, I'm sure that you, Fundi, work with people who are dealing with time related issues, that is causing them anxiety, causing them pain, causing them suffering. And this particular principle takes people out of that, take them out of whatever suffering they're experiencing because of them looking to time.
I've spent too much of this illusion bettering myself, studying you guys, studying the rhythms around me, the nature, the God in me that over time has revealed itself in some of the most beautiful and God awful ways. Because surely if God is laughing, God has cried.
And, the principle is not to take something away from you or from people, it is to let a person see the various, quote, using your words, Fundi, the various mind hacks. And that one, I mean, the this particular principle of time being an illusion is basically to help you, it takes that away to add something. To sometimes we have to take away in order to add that which is good. We we just and that is what you do in your teaching. You help people see the things that they need to be free of in order to get to a state of joy, a state of freedom, a state of feeling free.
Because I know the importance. People don't like to read anymore. I love to read. I love to figure out what somebody else has in their mind, to sort through it, pick through it. But time, time, I'm under the impression the only people that have ever really studied time are almanac makers and clock makers, of which there's only real one American clockmaker left in the US of A. I just want y'all to know that. I went to a convention of.
And yes, there is someone else that has studied time, and that is the mental scientist of the ancient wisdom teachings of know thyself. You see, they have studied the effects of time on the man's mind, on the human mind. That's all it is. That's who else has studied. So you can add mental scientists to that list. And I don't mean the mental scientists of uh, the mental health profession. I don't mean the psychologists and the psychiatrists, and I'm talking spiritual psychologists. not just regular people who only study books. That's the difference. The mental scientists or the spiritual psychologists study themselves first. They're mental, just like you have. Uh, you just said earlier that you spent lots of time studying yourself and then studying the people that you work with. So let's go on.
Is 2 years ago. Takes time. What are you doing with your time? Hey, you're depressed? Are you depressed? Tell me what you're doing with your time and I can tell you why you're depressed. Give me an itemized list of what you do with your time and I will show you, I will indicate you, I will point it out minute by minute by minute by minute while you're depressed.
And so far as depression is concerned, um, I show people how when they're depressed, I show them how their thoughts are creating that depression, how their thoughts of the past and thoughts of the future is creating that condition.
Oh, I hope I'm not stepping on any toes out there.
Typical Fundi Fe.
You get it?
Now this is an amazing part where she goes into. This is just amazing to me because she touches on it. She touches right around the edge of the principle and just didn't break through because she's not into into the teaching, so she can't break through. But here we go.
If time was linear, you couldn't think of the past and you couldn't think of a future. You would only have a present thought if time was linear.
Beautiful. I could not have said it better. I could not have said it better. Exactly, precisely, as Dr. Watson used to say. Precisely. If you didn't have the thoughts of past and the future, you would only have the present moment, the present thought, thoughts of present. That's where you are. That's where you should be. That's where you will find the peace. That's where you find peace. And that's where the ancient wisdom teaching of know thyself, for lack of better words that the conscious community understands. Um, Someone said before, the kingdom of God can be found in the space between two thoughts. So we're going to make those thoughts the past and the present. Thoughts of the past, thoughts of the present, and right in between it, I just said, I meant, of course, thoughts of the past, thoughts of the future. And right between it is thoughts of present. And see, when you take a child who is running track and field, and that child grows up to think about who's around them, their past failures, their desire to win, their desire to get to get there first, beat their buddies, whatever, all of the things that they do, their I forgot how you used the word they use to needle each other, and I forgot the word they use, the street word they use. But um when that child is learning track and field and have all of these things in their mind, and they thinking about the past time that they didn't win, and their desire to where they really want to win, and then they think about what the coach has said to them, and if they don't make it this time, they just know they're not going to be able to stay on the team, and they know they're not going to be able to go and get off the bench so that they can be one of the the runners, and be in a big event. And but when you teach a child like that when they come off the start line, the only thoughts that they could have and should have is the present moment, is when your feet hit the ground and your arms are swinging, and that is the only thought that you have. You let your body take, or you let your mind accept all the training that you have learned that has been put into your body, and you just go into that moment and forget about all of the past and the future thoughts. When you X those out of it, that child becomes dynamic. And the reason for that is because the rest of the children are thinking about the last time they didn't make it. Are they going to be able to stay on the team? You know, uh, is this person, his buddies, going to beat him again? All of these things. Even if someone who has been the front runner can be thinking, well, I can't lose it. I can't lose it right now because last time somebody beat me and I can't let them win this time. Anxiety, anxiety. So when you can teach your child to stay in that moment, stay in that stay present and not in your mind going back and forth. You stay present and pay attention to everything you're doing on that field at that time during that race. That child will be dynamic. And like I say, because the other children are a wreck, they are wrecks. So they're mental wrecks, and they cannot perform full heartedly and free like we were given, the freedom that we were given as that we were given by the good of God. We cannot, they cannot enjoy that. And most of them don't know anything about that. But if they did, incredible. You would think they're Superman or something. So let's hear some more from Fundi here. And I'm going to cut this a little bit short. Shouldn't take very much more here. I think you guys pretty much have the idea. Okay, and here we have something else she was saying about hunting and time.
time sticks to things. Time has in this particular dimension, time can stick to things. What do I mean by that? Like a timatic haunting. Oh, Fee, what do you mean by timatic haunting? This is what I mean by timatic haunting. Time is so plasmatic that it can plaster something very good or very bad onto a space. For instance, a lot of the battlefields in Virginia, because of so much blood that was shed, is haunting. That time has stuck to that spot, that it replays itself over and over and over and over again. A haunting not one that interacts with you, but one that's on a time loop, so to speak. Right. That's on a time loop.
Okay, and I understand that, and a good part of that is true. But a major part of that, the a haunting, is the fact that it is energy, the spirit of energy. The energy is basically what plasters that haunting, makes that a haunting. It is, time is important, and time is being used, but it's mainly energy that holds it there. It keeps it in that space. For instance, I lived in an apartment, and right across from my apartment was larger apartments. They were more of a larger complex. So my complex had 5 units in it. The other complex, you would have like 4 apartments to a building. So you had a big area that had a number of buildings with these 4 apartments in it. So in this, which really didn't mean very much, I didn't want to explain all of that. But anyways, I could sit from in my living room on my sofa and look out of my window and see these apartments. Well, right where I can see, there was a murder in the in that building, and a young child was killed um, in that building, and the news came out, and because it was a big story, because a baby lost her life, a young girl. She was I think they said she was about 3 or 4 years old. I'm kind of stretching. I'm trying to stay off that number three, but I think she was about 3 or 4 years old. And she had a little brother that was one, who was, I don't want to get into too many details about it, but when they came out, the news came out, they talked about the murder and everything. And apparently the mother was out chasing drugs. She had a young man to come over, another drug addict, to come and watch her kids, and she went out chasing drugs, um, and left him with the kids, but he didn't plan on staying that long. So she didn't come back on time, of course, that she said she was going to come back. So he ended up killing the little girl, saying that the little girl was haunted. Saying that, no, he didn't say she was haunted. He said um she was possessed. That's the word they use. So, and then he went out and called the police on himself for that, and he told the police that the girl was possessed. So, then after that situation, 3 years later to the date, there was another murder in that building. There was a Korean boyfriend and girlfriend that moved in. When I say boyfriend and girlfriend, I mean a couple. And he, after the Rodney King riots, he was a Korean man who had a shop down in L.A. and they ended up they ended up got burnt down and everything. And then um, anyways, I'm trying to think of too many things right now because, anyways, anyways, 3 years to the date, the baby, I mean, he killed his girlfriend in there. He choked her to death. So the news came out, started saying the haunted house and all of these things. And then eventually, the owner of that property ended up tearing that particular building down and left, all the other buildings there because they felt it was a haunting and they could not rent it again. Or I don't know if that was moral or if it was legal that they could not rent it again. But, anyways, so that energy stayed there. And it also had a reflection on time, And like I say, I'm not sure if the little girl was 3 years old or not. I'm not sure. But I do know the baby was one. So, anyways, so I understand what she's saying when it comes down to that. But it is energy and what we call spirit that holds that there. And I've seen it also happen in other things that didn't have the time connected to it. The same condition starts to happen even where people had the same name. Someone that had died in a place in one apartment had died, killed herself at one time, and then the lady that moved in after her had the very same name. And then she started having the same kind of behavior, the depressive the behavior, um, until we ended up telling her about it, and then she moved out. But um, so the time wasn't there, but the energy was still there. And she was starting to come under the influence of that energy by being pulled in, number one, just on her name. So it's the energy, the spirit that's left in, and that is plastered, as Fundi says, that's plastered on the scene.
It explains the Trail of Tears. It explains a lot. Good stuff too. Now it explains trauma. It explains a time trauma and what I call a time crystal. What I mean by a time crystal is things that happen really, really happy on a time loop. Like you going to, there's this circle of trees that me and my husband used to train under. I go to that circle of trees now, and even though we're not training, I still feel the joy, the exhilaration, the learning, I still feel that magnificence that we created in that particular spot. You know, you go somewhere and it feels good.
And that's because we are energy as well. It's not a matter of time. See, this time you didn't speak of anything about time. I mean, your stories didn't really illustrate time. It illustrated the feelings of the energy that was left in that place. Okay. And it was undisturbed by anyone else's energy. Now, the thing is that people look at hauntings as being, you know, when something bad happens, like you say, or, someone, death or something. But we have energy as well. And our energy, we leave our energy in places. And what I have noticed is just watching apartments, doing apartment living. And when you go and go around to, you know, live in different apartments, what I have discovered over the years that you leave your energy in your apartment. Your family leaves their energy there. And then when you leave, someone else moves in and they end up having, and I've seen it many, many times over and over again, where these people have similarities to you. They have similarities to the people who used to live there. So we leave our own stamp, our own energetic stamp on the spaces that we reside and we frequent. So, yes, you're right. And yes, we're right too.
You know, that's a time stamp.
So, but you can tell that, like I said, with the different stories, it's not necessarily a time stamp, because, like I say, people tend to have, and you can watch it yourself, um, people tend to have the same uh, kind of energy. You're attracted to the same kind of energy of as your own to another apartment with someone else with the same kind of behavior, same kind of, sometimes same kind of jobs, those things. And that has nothing to do with time. That has to do with I mean, of course, there might be an overall time thing involved in it. Someone moves into an apartment for 2 years, and then the next person moves in, 2 years later for another 2 years, or they stay longer, and, time might be involved in there somewhere, but I haven't been able to track that. But, so it's not necessarily just a timestamp. The haunting itself is not a timestamp. It's the energy. It's the energy, and that energy has a purpose. So in the story of having that time of 3 years and the baby being, I think she was 3 years old. If I'm remembering correctly, I believe she was 3 years old. And on top of it, the month of the both these deaths in that apartment was March. Okay. So 3 was definitely playing there for some reason. So That is very distinct. But the other incidents, we're just energy. We're just energy, we're spirit, and we uh, write ourselves on the places that we reside and the places that we frequent. We definitely do that. So, but not only dead, but living as well. So I think that's the best way to put it is that, it is a haunting, but it's a energetic haunting. And it doesn't have much to do with time because we're still here.
Oh, I've been diagnosed with major depression, and now I'm thinking I'm just going through a time loop of the past. Yes! Yes, Hannah! Yes! Wow! Woo! Oh, na 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 na.
Girl, you so silly. But let me get your face out of that mode there. Anyways, yes, I agree. But her time loop in depression is most likely because she is constantly revisiting past experiences and probably peppered with a little bit of future fear of something that's coming up. So, yes, it's a time loop. Yes, depression. But like I say, that's on a human level, that's on a physical level, rather. But spiritually, like I said, all of that she's doing in the past, all of that time loop that she adapted that because that's what you're talking about. Okay? But she is basically revisiting the past in her mind. And in order to become free of that depression, she needs to understand it to a point of embodying it. The principle that moment, all of those thoughts that she's having about the past, that she's crying over and all of that, it's an illusion. You're crying over an illusion. You are crying over something that is not happening right now. And if you can take your thoughts and leave those thoughts, you leave those thoughts where they are in the past and come to the present, there is no depression. If you can keep your mind in what you're doing now, if you were laying down, if you were standing up, if you were reading a book, if you were cooking, if you were doing whatever you're doing, and you're talking to someone on the phone, you keep your mind in that space, then you will find that depression doesn't exist. It only exists in your thoughts of the past or of the future. Now, I'm going to end it here. I have also at one point, Fundi says that about her Tai Chi. And I want her to know that, hey, Fundi, I want you to know, I'm looking at her now. I want you to know that your Tai Chi, and this is what, we know in this teaching, that those kind of practices actually are teaching you to stay in the present. They're present moment teachings. That's why the movement is so methodical and so precise and so slow moving. You have to pay attention to how it flows. Everything that you're doing, that's the purpose of it. And like I say, if the young lady that was just diagnosed with the depression who learns Tai Chi, she will be learning to stay in the moment, and her mind at the time will not be going to the past or in the future. So, but then once the practice is over, usually people go right back to it. But you have to understand the teaching, the basics of that art, and it is to keep you in the present. Most people don't know that, so.
When you become depressed, you're on a back loop. You're reliving a back loop. It's like a haunting. It is a haunting.
And I agree. It is definitely a haunting. But where's the haunting coming from? The thing is, that woman is haunting herself because she has full control, though she does not know it, but she has full control of where her mind goes.
Right? The idea, now listen to me, because this is the tricky part. The idea is to slide back into time as you are now, not as you were then. Let us not experience it the same way we did as children or young adults. No, this is the beauty of the plasmatic system. You can slide in as yourself now.
And see, that is basically, I mean, she's explaining exactly what I just explained, but she's explaining it in a more of a, how can I say, a psychologist, medical psychologist, or uh, a medical doctor or a psychologist doctor who would explain it. Um, how you don't live as the little child, and I mean, you go back and visit the little child, and work on the little child and all of that. Um, in the Know Thyself teaching, we teach that you go back into, I mean, you see what you're watching. You see your past thoughts, no matter what age. See, right here, she's assuming that her thoughts are about childhood or something like that. Those don't come in effect unless you are being plagued by uh, behavior from your childhood or something. Most of us are, um, but an immediate depression is basically somebody in their 40s that is depressed is not necessarily depressed because of something that happened as being a child. It might stem from that, but right now they're thinking about, most likely in the 40s, they're probably thinking about, my life haven't went this, anywhere. I was doing this, I was doing that. I had plans on doing this and plans on doing that, and it didn't materialize. So they get into depression. Um, so it's not always, going back and revisiting the child and working on the child and then coming back to the present. The idea is to see that when you go back, I mean, when your mind goes into the past, you need to understand that that is not a part of who you are now. Just like she's basically saying, is that you come back to who you are now as an adult, okay? But in the Know Thyself teaching, we teach that you come back to who you are in God, who you were originally in God. And who you were is one that does not worry, one that does not hang out in the past mentally, one that does not, cry over spilled milk, so to speak. Um, so you're when you going future and past in your thoughts, that is not an attribute of that which is good, which is the your true self. Okay, your true self, which is a piece of God, and the God does not hang around in the past. God is, what they say God is: the joy, the peace, the love, the harmony, the wisdom. Those things are realized in the present. God is the present. Like I said, someone was mentioning before. I mean, what I mentioned before, how someone used to say that the kingdom of God rests in the place, can be found in that space between two thoughts. So, and that is where the kingdom of God is. That is in the present. Okay. So I hear you. We're on the same boat, but with a little bit of tweaking there when it comes down to from a mental scientist perspective.
And aid yourself then, now, and then slide your ass back and heal it.
And that is the purpose of teaching, or the teaching of the principle of time is an illusion. Okay? Because what it does and what we teach is to, like she said, go there, go back, revisit it if you have to, but learn from it so that you can heal and then come back to the present. Okay? And that is the whole thing. See, she's on the level of, go back, as go into your childhood, and and this basically what the teaching is. Um, the Know Thyself teaching is to go back into your past and work on your conditioned mind and contemplate it, and then live in the present, be free of that. You can, once you put the light of awareness of it on it, then it won't haunt you anymore. It won't bother you anymore. So then you can live in the present. She's thinking of basically, like on a physical level, to go back into your childhood, or back into the what bothers you at the time, if it was a teenage or if it was, as a young adult or whatever, and then do what you have to do with it, and then, or see it, and then heal from it and come back to the present. She's saying the same thing, but she just don't know the principles. If she knew the principles, she'll know that she's doing the same thing, and then she can give you the wording that is needed so that you can be healed on a almost like an instant level, because you will see that it is not truly you. It's not your true self, which is what they call the higher self. That when you go back into the past like that and you revisit it and don't come out of it, that is your lower self, what they call the lower self. I don't like using that, but I guess it's a valid point of view. But your false self goes regularly into the past and the future. Okay, so what we teach is that you need to separate it. Separate your thoughts and your feelings from who you truly are, so far as your true self is concerned, and separate it from the false self, who you are not, who is the person that is going back and forth into the past, or and fantasizing about negativities that you were involved in and all those kind of things. But anyway, everyone, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you learned how to work with time, how to see that the present is not based on time. The present moment is where you should live, is in the present, and not the future or the past, because those aspects of the mind is an illusion. When it comes down to what you're doing right now and what is happening in your life right now at this moment, if you're touching something, if you're drinking something, if you're whatever you're doing right now, that is the most important time. That is the most important moment in your life. What is happening and what has happened in the past and what has happened in the future is an illusion. And it will take you away and cause you all kinds of pain and suffering if you do not get it under control. And that is why the conscious community speaks of the principle of time is an illusion. So thank you everyone for hanging in there with me. And I hope Fundi Fe don't feel too bad about this video. I tried to make it uh, as neutral as possible. But she's a great teacher, and she just don't know about the ancient wisdom teaching of know thyself. So, but she is there. Okay, she is right around the edge All she needs to know is the various principles, and then she will be able to experience it for herself, number one, and uh, be able to see the. I mean, she thinks she has seen miracles and miraculous things happening when she's teaching people now. You get with the teaching and align yourself with the different principles, you will see the most incredible things and that you didn't even probably imagine that it exists. So it will be a dimension of yourself that you had never seen. Simple as that. Anyways, thanks, Fundi. Shout out to Fundi Fe. Go and sub, of course. And I hope she don't feel too bad about this video. But anyways, I'll touch. I'll get in touch with her a little bit about this, and then I'll post it after that, or well, I'll post it and then I don't know. Since it's not a negative thing, so I guess she probably won't mind if I posted it, but I'll let her know that I'm gonna do it anyway, or that I did do it. I'm not sure. It depends on the time that I have and how I, work it out. But anyways, thank you guys for joining and sticking with me through this. And I will say good night, and I will see you in the next video.